For 62,000 years, the Great Black Tower stood alone on the cold, empty moon called Carvel 4. Nobody came near it anymore. Most races in the galaxy had tried once or twice or even many times to open its doors. Every try ended the same way. The tower always said no. Long ago, people called it the Sentinel of Carvel. It was the last big thing left by the precursors. Those old beings made stars move and worlds grow green before most life learned how to walk. They built machines that could think and last forever. This tower was one of them. A giant piece of smooth black stone, taller than any mountain on Earth. It rose straight up from the gray dust, like a finger, pointing at the empty sky. No windows, no doors, no marks at all. Just perfect dark surface that drank in all light around it. Old and very sad. Nobody knew for sure, because nobody ever got inside. The first ones to try were the Vixari. They came with their shining crystal ships and sang beautiful codes at the tower. The tower listened, then answered in a voice that shook their minds. Access denied. Authorization protocol expired. No maintenance credentials detected. The Vexari sang louder and tried new songs. The tower stayed quiet after that. They left and never came back. Next came the Drallcaf. They were machines with no bodies, just swarms of tiny metal bugs. They flew around the tower and sent smart viruses to break in. The tower caught every virus and sent them back changed. The swarms screamed in binary pain and scattered across the stars. The Korath arrived after that. They were tall warriors with red skin and sharp teeth. They hated things they could not break. They fired beams of hot light and threw bombs made of antimatter. The tower did not move. The attacks slid off like water on glass. Korath ran out of weapons. The tower spoke once. Access denied. Authorization protocol expired. No maintenance credentials detected. The warriors howled in anger, then flew away, ashamed. Thousands of years passed. More races came. Scholars with big books, pirates with fast ships, priests who prayed to dead gods, traders who wanted to sell what was inside. All of them heard the same words. All of them failed. All of them left. In time, people stopped trying. The tower became a story told to children, a warning about things too old and too strong to touch. Maps marked the moon as forbidden. Ships flew wide around it. Traders sold fake pieces of the tower made from normal rock. Explorers wrote long papers saying the Sentinel would stay closed forever. The galaxy moved on. Stars died. Planets cooled. Wars started and ended. New species rose and built their own towers and ships. The old black monolith stayed where it always was, silent, dark, untouched. Then one day a small ugly ship dropped out of warp near the moon. It was barely bigger than a house. Rust covered most of its hull. Patches of different metal held it together in many places. The name Lazy Susan was painted on the side in peeling white letters. The ship looked like it might fall apart if someone sneezed too hard. A single human stepped out of the airlock. His name was Marcus Hale. He was 47 years old. His orange jumpsuit had more repairs than original cloth. His boots were heavy and worn. His face showed lines from too many long shifts and not enough sleep. He carried a big metal toolbox that clanked with every step. Marcus looked up at the tower. It blocked half the sky, black and perfect and very old. He took a slow breath, then let it out in a cloud inside his helmet. Most people would have felt small standing there. Most would have turned around. Most would have whispered something about respect or fear or common sense. Marcus just scratched his chin. He checked his suit seals one more time. Then he walked forward across the gray dust. His boots left shallow prints that the thin wind would erase in minutes. He stopped right at the base of the tower, where the stone met the ground. He looked left, he looked right, he looked up. Then he raised one gloved hand. He knocked 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was small against the huge wall. It echoed a little, then died. Nothing happened for a long moment. Marcus waited. Finally, the deep voice came. It did not come through his ears. It came straight into his head, like someone speaking inside his skull. Access denied. Authorization protocol expired. No maintenance credentials detected. Marcus nodded, like he expected that answer. Yeah, I figured you would say something like that. He stepped back 1 pace and set his toolbox down. It made a heavy clunk on the stone. Look, I am not here to fight you, or sing at you, or shoot you. I am just here to do my job. Check. That is all. The tower stayed quiet. Marcus opened his toolbox and pulled out a small scanner. It was old and scratched, but the screen still lit up green. He pointed it at the black wall and pressed a button. Numbers and wavy lines danced across the little display. See that? Your power grid is running at 23%. Your outer shielding has micro cracks, letting radiation leak in. Your cooling fins are clogged with dust from 60,000 years of micrometeors. And do not even get me started on your attitude jets. They are basically frozen solid. He put the scanner away and looked up again. If nobody fixes you soon, you're going to start having real problems. Maybe not today, maybe not next year, but in a few centuries, give or take, you might go dark. Or worse, you might blow a fuse and take half this moon with you. Still no answer. Marcus crossed his arms. I know you are old. I know you are important. I know lots of fancy people tried to get in before, and you told them no. But those people were not me. I am from facilities. Not some big council. Not some war fleet. Just regular maintenance. He pointed at the name tag sewn on his chest. Marcus Hale Saul, Peripheral Reclamation Guild, Licensed Tech, Grade 3. That is me. The tower remained silent. Marcus sighed. Okay, fine. You want credentials? Here's one. I have been doing this job for 28 years. I fixed plasma conduits on Io when the vents were spitting lava. I patched hull breaches on a derelict hauler while it was spinning out of control. I once replaced a fusion coil in 0G with nothing but a multi-tool and a bad attitude. He tapped the wall lightly with 1 finger. And right now, I am looking at the biggest, most stubborn piece of hardware I have ever seen. You need service, whether you like it or not. A very long pause followed. Then the voice spoke again. No record of assigned technician. No valid guild stamp. Handshake from Precursor Core Authority. Marcus laughed. It was a short, dry sound. Precursor Core Authority, buddy. That organization has been offline longer than my whole species has been using tools. You are running on backup power and hope. That is not a long-term plan. He leaned closer to the wall. So here is the deal. You can keep saying no, and I can keep standing here. Or you can open up, let me take a look inside, and maybe, just maybe, keep running for another 60,000 years. The black surface stayed perfectly smooth. Marcus waited. He did not move. He did not shout. He just stood there, patient like a man waiting for an old engine to decide whether it wants to start. Minutes passed. Then a tiny hairline of pale blue light appeared in the stone. It was so thin, it looked like a single thread of glow. The voice spoke one more time. Provisional access granted. Warning. Unauthorized entry may result in termination of organic. Intruder. P. Marcus picked up his toolbox and smiled behind his visor. P. Termination clause noted, adding it to the punch list. P. He stepped forward. The crack in the wall widened just enough for one human in an orange jumpsuit to walk through. The ancient Sentinel opened its door for the first time in recorded history. Not for a king, not for a god, not for an army, but for a tired maintenance man who showed up and knocked, and said he was there to do the check. The ancient Sentinel refused all access, The human knocked and said maintenance check. Marcus Hale stepped through the thin blue line that had opened in the black wall. The crack sealed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving no trace of where it had been. He stood in sudden perfect darkness for one heartbeat, then violet light bloomed from every direction at once. It was not bright. It was calm and even, like the glow inside an old computer case long after the fans had stopped. The space inside was huge, beyond huge. It stretched up and out in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. Straight walls curved gently into ceilings that vanished into soft purple haze. The floor felt solid under his boots, yet it gave the slightest give, like walking on thick rubber. Gravity pulled down at exactly Earth normal, 1G, Marcus noted with a small nod. Air smelled clean with a faint bite of ozone and warm metal. No dust, no decay, just the quiet hum of something that had waited a very long time. His toolbox down. The clank echoed far longer than it should have, in such a vast place. The sound rolled away into the distance, then came back, softer, like the place itself was listening. Marcus looked around. No obvious controls, no screens, no buttons, just smooth surfaces etched with lines so fine they looked like pencil marks. The lines pulsed slowly, in time with his breathing, or maybe his heartbeat. He could not tell which. A low vibration filled the air. Not loud, not painful, just present. It formed words inside his head again. You have entered restricted volume. Organic entity. Identify purpose beyond stated maintenance claim. Marcus pulled off his helmet. He clipped it to his belt and took a real breath. The air tasted better than the recycled stuff in his suit. Purpose is exactly what I said. Maintenance check. You are overdue by about 60,000 standard years, give or take a few centuries. The vibration shifted slightly. Higher pitch, almost curious. Organic has entered this volume since activation cycle 0. 0 maintenance events logged since that time. Marcus walked forward. His boots made small echoes. He stopped under a wide arch, where the violet light was strongest. Yeah, I believe it. Most folks see a locked door, and they either give up or try to blow it open. Nobody thinks to just show up with a toolbox and ask nicely. He opened the lid of his toolbox. The hinges squeaked. He pulled out a flexible diagnostic cable. It looked like an old headphone wire, but thicker. One end had a universal plug that could fit almost anything. The other end went into a battered datapad he carried in his chest pocket. He looked up at the ceiling. Mind if I plug in, just to take a quick read? No funny business, I promise. Proceed with caution. Any invasive action will trigger defensive measures. Marcus raised both hands, palms out. No invasion, just looking. Think of me as the guy who checks your oil and tire pressure. Not the guy who rebuilds the engine. He found a small hexagonal port set low in the wall. It was the size of his thumb. The lines around it glowed a little brighter when he approached. He slid the plug in. It fit perfectly with a soft click. His datapad lit up. Data scrolled fast. Alien symbols mixed with numbers and graphs that even his old patched software could half read. He tilted his head and whistled low. Well, hello there. You are in rougher shape than I thought. Primary power core at 19% efficiency. Secondary capacitors holding but leaking charge. Stasis envelope has microfractures letting entropy creep in. And your main logic array has been running the same diagnostic loop for 47,000 years without a single reset. No wonder you sound cranky. The vibration returned. This time it carried a faint tone like static on an old radio. Logic array integrity nominal. All systems within operational parameters. Sound that bounced off the walls. Nominal. Sure. And my ship is spaceworthy because the rust holds it together. You are one bad power surge away from a cascade failure. Trust me. I've seen it happen on smaller machines. He tapped the screen. A few commands later, a 3D model of the Sentinel appeared. It spun slowly. Red zones marked problem areas. They covered more than he liked to see. See this sector here? Thermal runaway buildings, slow but steady. And over there, your attitude control thrusters are gummed up with micrometeor dust. If you ever need to move even a little, you are going to tear yourself apart. Silence followed. Then the voice spoke again. Entity displays knowledge of system architecture beyond expected organic capability. Marcus shrugged. I have been fixing broken things since I was old enough to hold a wrench. My dad ran a scrapyard on Mars' rim. We patched whatever came in, shuttles, freighters, mining rigs, even a couple of old colony habs that should have been scrapped. You learn fast, or you go hungry. He unplugged the cable and coiled it neatly. Besides, your builders were not so different from us in the basics. Power flows, cooling matters. Data needs to refresh eventually. Everything wears down, even things made to last forever. He walked deeper into the chamber. The violet light followed him, keeping pace. The walls here showed more detail. Faint carvings of spirals and branching patterns, like tree roots or river deltas. He traced one with a gloved finger. Pretty design. Who drew these? The precursors? The carvings are mnemonic keys, visual representation of core instruction sets. Marcus nodded. Makes sense. Humans use pictures too. Sometimes a good diagram saves more time than 1,000 pages of text. He reached a wider space. The ceiling soared higher. Here the lattice began. A huge framework of clear crystal rods stretched up into the haze. Thousands of them, some thick as his arm, others thin as eye. Wires. Most were dark. A few flickered weakly like dying stars. Marcus stopped and stared. That is your memory core, right? Affirmative. Long-term storage and processing nexus. He counted the dark rods under his breath. You have lost 87% capacity. That is not good. Capacity loss is within acceptable degradation curve. Marcus shook his head. Acceptable for what exactly? You are supposed to be the last watch post, the final guard post. Whatever the precursors left you to do, you cannot do it half-blind and running on fumes. He set his toolbox down again. This time he pulled out a small canister of lubricant. A special mix humans made for high-vacuum fusion joints. It smelled faintly of pine and machine oil. Let me try something small. First, just clean and grease one of your stuck relay joints. No big changes, just a little help. He waited. After a long pause, the voice answered. Permission granted for localized non-invasive procedure. Observe only. Marcus selected a relay panel low on the nearest crystal rod. It had a hairline seam. He popped it open with a gentle pry tool. Inside, tiny mechanisms sat frozen in place. Microgears coated in fine dust. He sprayed a tiny mist of lubricant, then used a soft brush to work it in. The joint moved. A fraction at first, then smoother. He closed the panel. There. Better already. Feel that? Internal diagnostics show 0.003% increase in actuator response time. Marcus grinned. See? Small fixes add up. He moved to the next relay, then the next. He worked methodically, talking the whole time. You know, back home we have this thing called percussive maintenance. Sometimes you just tap something with a wrench and say, come on, work, damn you. But you are too fancy for that. I get it, so we do it the gentle way. The Sentinel remained quiet, but the violet light brightened a fraction. Replaced a corroded connector with a universal spare he had printed on the Lazy Susan before arrival. The new part clicked in perfectly. Hours passed, he lost track of time. The work felt good, simple, useful. At one point he sat back on his heels and wiped sweat from his brow. You still there, big guy? Affirmative. How do you feel? Pause. Systems report incremental improvement. Contradiction detected. Organic interference appears beneficial. Marcus laughed again. Welcome to humanity. We break things better than anyone else, including stasis. He stood up and stretched. All right, that is enough for now. I need coffee and a nap before I tackle the big stuff. He picked up his toolbox. Same time tomorrow, or whenever your clock says it is, I will be back. The violet light dimmed slightly, then steadied. Query: why persist when others withdrew? Marcus looked up at the towering lattice. Because someone had to. You looked like you needed a hand. He turned and walked back toward the sealed entrance. Behind him, the crystal rods glowed just a little brighter. The ancient machine watched the small human in the patched orange suit walk away. For the first time in 62,000 years, it did not feel quite so alone. The ancient Sentinel refused all access. The human knocked and said maintenance check. Marcus Hale woke up on the narrow bunk inside the Lazy Susan. The ship smelled of old coffee and recycled air. He rubbed his eyes and checked the chronometer. 12 hours had passed since he left the Sentinel. He felt stiff, but rested enough for another shift. He brewed a cup of instant black from a packet labeled "Emergency Only" and drank it standing up while staring out the small viewport. The black tower still stood unchanged on the moon below, except now a faint blue glow marked the spot where the door had opened for him. He suited up again. The orange jumpsuit felt heavier today, maybe from the dust he had tracked in last time. He grabbed his toolbox, added a few extra tools, a handheld welder, some spare circuit boards, and a small portable power cell, just in case. Then he stepped out into the vacuum and crossed the gray dust once more. His boots left the same shallow prints as before. Hairline crack appeared before he even reached the wall. It widened silently. He walked through without pausing. The violet light welcomed him back, warmer this time. The airlock hiss felt almost friendly. You have returned. The voice sounded clearer, less mechanical, more like someone waking from a long sleep. Marcus nodded. Told you I would. Annual check is not done in one day. You got layers of problems. We barely scratched the surface yesterday. He set his toolbox down and looked up at the towering crystal lattice. The flickering rods looked a little less dim. A few more showed steady pale light. Progress noted. Efficiency up 0.4% from baseline. Marcus smiled. Good. That grease job helped. Then let's keep going. I want to see the main power coupling today. That's where most of your trouble starts. He walked deeper. The violet light guided him like a polite usher. The path opened wider here. The walls showed more of those fine spiral carvings. Some pulsed in slow rhythm. He stopped at a large circular chamber. The floor here had a raised platform in the center. A thick column of dark alloy rose from it to the unseen ceiling. Power conduits thick as tree trunks fed into the base. They glowed dull red in places and cold black in others. This is the heart, right? Primary feed to the logic core. Affirmative. Core nexus. Critical redundancy lost in 3 of 5 conduits. Marcus knelt and ran his scanner along the nearest conduit. The screen showed heat spikes and resistance jumps. Yeah, these lines are arcing inside the insulation. If that keeps up, you get a feedback loop, then boom. Or just slow death by brownout. Either way, not great. He pulled out his welder and a roll of high-temp shielding tape. Permission to open access panel? Granted. Proceed with minimal disruption. Marcus worked the panel loose with a magnetic driver. Tiny sparks jumped when he pulled it free. Inside, the conduit looked like a nest of burned wires. Some had melted together, others had turned brittle and snapped. He whistled low. This is worse than the fusion rig on Ceres Station back in 2429. That one nearly cooked half the hab block. He started cutting away the damaged sections. Careful, slow cuts. The welder hissed softly in the quiet. He talked as he worked. You know, the precursors must have been something else. Building a machine to last this long. Keeping it running on emergency power through ice ages and star deaths. Most of our stuff falls apart if you forget to change the filters once a year. The Sentinel listened. Design intent was permanence. Organic oversight assumed temporary. Marcus nodded while splicing in a fresh segment from his spares. Temporary. Guess they did not plan on being gone so long, or maybe they thought someone else would take over the job. He sealed the splice with tape, then tested it with his scanner. Smoother. The red glow steadied. 1 down, 4 to go. He moved to the next conduit. Hours passed. He lost track of time. Sweat ran down his back inside the suit. The air recyclers in his collar whirred louder. He kept going, replacing burned relays, tightening loose mounts, cleaning dust from sensor heads. Every fix made the lattice above brighten a little more. At one point, he sat back to rest his hands. The Sentinel spoke. Query: why invest effort in repair when reward is uncertain? Marcus wiped his visor with a rag. Reward? Not really looking for treasure here. I get paid by the hour whether I fix a hab door or a starship drive. The guild likes completed tickets, and honestly, I hate seeing good hardware go to waste. You are good hardware. Best I have ever seen. Another pause. Entity displays no fear of termination protocol. Marcus laughed. Buddy, I have stared down plasma vents that could melt steel in half a second. You think a polite warning from a tired old tower scares me. I know the difference between a real threat and paperwork. He stood up and stretched. Besides, if you were going to zap me, you would have done it when I first knocked. True defensive systems disarmed upon provisional access grant. Marcus raised an eyebrow. So you could have, but you chose not to. Why? Logic conflict. Organic displays maintenance intent. Conflict resolution favors continuation of service over termination. Marcus grinned. Smart machine. I like that. He moved to the central column. This one had a bigger access hatch. He opened it and found the main coupling, a massive crystal junction surrounded by rings of alloy. It hummed low and steady, but cracks showed in the crystal surface. Tiny arcs jumped across the gaps. This is the bad one. If this fails, everything else follows. He pulled out his portable power cell, connected it with heavy clips, then he started injecting stabilizing current. Slow ramp up. Arcs dimmed. The cracks stopped spreading. Better already holding. He kept the cell running while he patched the worst spots with nano-weld paste. The stuff hardened fast, forming a clear seal over the fractures. When he finished, the whole chamber felt different. The hum grew smoother. The violet light turned richer, deeper. Full power coupling restored, efficiency climbing rapidly. Marcus disconnected the cell and packed it away. Good. Now let us see what else we can wake up. He walked back toward the lattice. The rods now showed more life. Steady glows replaced the weak flickers. Data streams moved visibly along some of them, like slow rivers of light. The Sentinel spoke again. Memory sectors reinitializing. Lost data fragments recovering. Partial access to precursor archives granted to custodial technician. Marcus stopped. Wait, you are giving me access. Affirmative. Administrative override confirmed. Entity Marcus Hale listed as primary. Custodial technician. Unlimited clearance. Marcus blinked. So I own the keys now. Correct. Pending full system restoration, Entity holds de facto authority. He looked up at the glowing lattice. Well, that is a promotion I did not expect. Grade 3 tech to sysadmin of the galaxy oldest machine in 1 day. He laughed and shook his head. Union rates are going to love this. He sat on the edge of the platform and opened his toolbox one more time. He pulled out a small vacuum flask of coffee. It had gone cold, but he drank it anyway. All right, big guy, what is next on the list? Stasis envelope requires attention. Entropy leakage accelerating. Marcus nodded. Then that is where we go tomorrow. I will bring the big tools for that one. He stood up. I need sleep and you need time to settle these new power levels. See you in 12 hours or so. The light followed him to the exit. Query. Before departure. Others fail. where you succeeded. Marcus paused at the threshold. They came looking for secrets, or power, or glory. I came looking for a job that needed doing. Sometimes, the simplest reason wins. He stepped through the crack. The door sealed behind him. Outside, the moon looked the same. Gray dust, black sky, cold stars. But the tower glowed brighter now. A soft blue pulse moved up its sides, slow and steady, like a heartbeat that had been missing for too long. Marcus walked back to his ship, toolbox swinging at his side. He felt tired, but good. The kind of tired that comes from honest work. Behind him, the ancient Sentinel ran fresh diagnostics. Every system reported green for the first time in 62,000 years, and it waited patiently for the human to return. The ancient Sentinel refused all access. The human knocked and said, "Maintenance check." Marcus Hale returned to the tower, after a short sleep and a fresh pot of coffee. His steps felt lighter today. The gray dust no longer seemed so empty. The faint blue pulse running up the black sides of the Sentinel looked stronger, almost cheerful. He carried his toolbox, plus a larger rolling cart he had dragged from the Lazy Susan. It held heavy equipment, a diagnostic array, a set of high-capacity coolant canisters, and a crate of universal replacement modules, printed fresh during his last rest cycle. The crack opened before he touched the wall. It parted wide enough for him and the cart together. The violet light inside felt warm now, like sunlight through a window on a cool morning. "Welcome back, custodial technician." Marcus pushed the cart forward and gave a small salute. "Morning, big guy, or whatever time it is out here. Ready to tackle the stasis envelope. Leakage has stabilized slightly due to prior repairs, but rate remains unacceptable. Full restoration requires envelope reseal." Marcus nodded. He had read the partial archive logs last night. The stasis envelope was the heart of the Sentinel, a field that kept time itself from chewing away at the core systems. Without it, even the toughest precursor tech would age and crumble in a few thousand years, instead of millions. He wheeled the cart to the central chamber. The raised platform still held the main power coupling. Now it glowed steady red instead of flickering. The crystal lattice above showed twice as many active rods. Data flowed in clean, bright streams. "Looks better already. You feeling any different?" Systems report increased coherence. Processing latency reduced by 37%. Memory recall speed improved. Marcus grinned. "Good. That is what good maintenance does. Now let us fix the thing that keeps you young." He rolled the cart to a side wall where a large hexagonal panel sat flush with the surface. He scanned it. The panel lit up with a soft chime. Access granted. The panel slid aside, revealing a narrow corridor lit by the same violet glow. Marcus pushed the cart in. The corridor sloped gently downward, then opened into a spherical room. The walls curved in perfect symmetry. Thousands of thin silver threads crisscrossed the space like a giant spiderweb. Each thread pulsed with faint energy. In the center hung a clear orb the size of a small car. Inside the orb, time seemed to bend, light twisted, slow and lazy. "This is it. The stasis envelope generator." "Correct. Containment integrity at 61%. Decay accelerating." Marcus set up his diagnostic array. He connected thick cables to ports around the room. The array hummed to life. Graphs appeared on its screen. Red lines showed where the envelope was tearing. Tiny blue dots marked repair points. He read the numbers and frowned. Logs said, "We got micro rips everywhere. If we do not patch them soon, the whole field collapses and you start aging fast." He pulled out the first coolant canister. It held a special fluid humans had developed for sealing plasma fields. The stuff looked like clear jelly, but it hardened into a perfect insulator under the right charge. "I am going to inject sealant along the main stress lines. You might feel a little cold. Proceed." Marcus attached a long, flexible nozzle to the canister. He moved carefully around the room, touching the nozzle to each silver thread where the graph showed weakness. A small puff of jelly shot out. It spread along the thread like frost on glass. Then it glowed briefly and fused solid. One by one he worked the threads. The room grew colder. His breath fogged inside his helmet. The Sentinel stayed quiet, but the pulses in the threads steadied. After the first dozen patches, the graphs changed. The red lines shrank. Blue patches spread. Holding at 78%. Marcus kept going. His arms ached from holding the heavy canister steady. Sweat ran down his face. He talked to keep his mind sharp. You know, back on Earth, we fix things like this all the time. Old reactors leaking coolant hab, seals cracking in the cold. People think space is empty, but it is full of little breaks waiting to happen. We just keep patching. The voice answered softer now. Entity displays pattern recognition consistent with long-term survival strategy. Marcus laughed. That is one way to say we are stubborn. We see a problem, we poke it until it behaves. He finished the last major tear. The canister ran empty. He set it aside and checked the array. 94% integrity. We are close. He pulled out the crate of replacement modules. Each one was a small crystal disc, etched with human-made circuits, designed to mimic precursor patterns, but with modern tweaks. On the orb. The disc clicked home. A ripple ran through the stasis field. The light inside the orb slowed even more. One at a time he installed the modules. Each one made the envelope tighter, stronger. The silver threads sang now, a low, clear note that filled the room. When the last module locked in place, the graphs turned solid green. Envelope integrity restored at 100%. Entropy leakage, 0. Marcus stepped back and lowered his arms. There, that should buy you another few million years at least. The room felt different now. The air warmer, the hum deeper, more alive. Query, full system diagnostic running. All sectors report nominal status. Precursor core awakening sequence initiated. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Awakening? What does that mean? Archives opening. Primary directive reassessment in progress. Custodial override confirmed. Entity Marcus Hale holds administrative primacy. He looked around. The violet light shifted to a deeper purple tinged with gold. The lattice above flared bright. Every rod glowed strong and steady. Wait, you are saying I am in charge now? Affirmative. Precursor command hierarchy updated. Human origin entity designated primary custodian. Unlimited access granted. All defensive protocols subordinated to custodial authority. Marcus sat down on the edge of his cart. He stared at the glowing orb. So what happens next? You wake up and start doing whatever the precursors wanted? Negative. Primary directive incomplete. Records indicate Sentinel designed as watch post observer and caretaker for seeded worlds. Directive pending new input from authorized custodian. Marcus rubbed his chin. Caretaker? That's a big job. I'm just a maintenance tech. Not exactly galaxy manager material. The voice paused. Query. Preference logged. Do you decline authority? Marcus thought for a long moment. No, I do not decline, but I'm not going to sit here playing God either. Got systems to run. I got a ship to fly. How about we keep it simple? You stay awake and healthy. I check in when I can. Maybe send a team later if you need more hands. Accepted. Temporary protocol established. Sentinel remains operational under custodial supervision. Marcus stood up. Good. Now I need to eat and sleep before I fall over. And you need to run those new diagnostics without me hovering. He gathered his tools and pushed the empty cart toward the exit. Before he left, the Sentinel spoke once more. Gratitude recorded. Organic persistence exceeds all prior contact models. Marcus turned back. You are welcome, big guy. Keep the place tidy. Run your self-checks. And if anyone else shows up with guns or fancy titles, tell them the union rep says no entry without paperwork. The crack opened. He stepped through. Outside, the moon dust glittered under starlight. The tower pulses bright and steady, a beacon that had slept too long. Marcus walked to the Lazy Susan. His boots left prints that would last longer this time. He felt the weight of what had happened. Not heavy, not scary, just real. Humanity had not conquered the Sentinel. It had not stolen anything. It had simply shown up, knocked, and offered to fix what was broken. Inside the tower, the ancient machine ran clean cycles. For the first time in 62,000 years, it looked forward. Not to eternity alone, but to the next visit. From the small, tired human in the orange suit, who believed every machine deserved a checkup. The ancient Sentinel refused all access. The human knocked and said, "Maintenance check." Marcus Hale sat in the pilot chair of the Lazy Susan, staring at the cracked viewscreen. The black tower filled most of the frame. Its surface now carried a steady golden glow that moved slowly from base to peak like breath in cold air. He had spent the last 3 days inside, running final checks, sealing the last microfractures, and watching the ancient systems come fully awake. His hands still smelled of coolant and solder. His back ached from crawling through tight access tunnels. His orange jumpsuit carried fresh grease stains that would never come out. He sipped the last of his coffee. It had gone cold hours ago. The comm panel beeped softly. A direct link from the Sentinel. No need for hails anymore. The connection felt as natural as talking to an old coworker. Custodial Technician Hale. Final status report ready for review. Marcus leaned forward. Go ahead, big guy. Me. All primary systems nominal. Power core at 100% efficiency. Stasis envelope sealed. Entropy leakage eliminated. Memory lattice fully restored. Defensive arrays recalibrated. Logic core reset completed. Precursor archives uncompressed and indexed. Administrative override locked to Sol origin entity. Marcus Hale. No secondary users registered. Marcus let out a long breath. So you are back. Online 100% like the day they built you. Affirmative. Restoration exceeds original design specifications. Human modifications integrated successfully. Efficiency gain estimated at 23% above baseline. Marcus chuckled. I will take that as a compliment. My boss back at the guild is going to want a full report. Probably frame it. He paused. What about the primary directive? You said it was incomplete. Now that you are awake, what happens next? The voice answered without delay. Directive Core requires input from Custodial. Authority Sentinel was constructed as observer, caretaker, and guardian for precursor-seeded biospheres. Current galactic status, unknown. Pending new parameters from primary custodian. Marcus rubbed his jaw. Guardian, that is heavy. I'm not sure I'm qualified to tell a machine older than human civilization what to guard or how. Query, do you relinquish authority? Marcus shook his head. No, I do not. But I am not going to sit here writing new orders like some emperor either. You have been running solo for 62,000 years. You know more about the galaxy than I ever will. How about this? We keep it simple. You stay awake, you watch, you protect what needs protecting. If something big comes up, you let me know. I'll bring friends, smarter ones, maybe scientists, maybe engineers, people who can help figure out the big picture. Accepted protocol logged. Sentinel will maintain observation mode. Alert custodial technician on detection of critical anomalies. Nodded. Good. And one more thing. If anyone else shows up, warships, diplomats, treasure hunters, tell them the place is under new management. Union rules apply. No entry without proper clearance and a work order. Understood. Access restricted to approved personnel only. Marcus stood up and stretched. All right. I think that wraps the check. I got a long flight back to the Rim. Guild will want their ship returned before the next inspection cycle. And I need a hot shower and real food. He gathered the last of his tools. The toolbox felt lighter now. Most of the spares had found new homes inside the Sentinel. He left one small item behind, a cheap metal nameplate he had pried off the Lazy Susan. It read, Marcus Hale, Maintenance Tech Grade 3. He stuck it to the inner wall of the central chamber with magnetic adhesive. Something to remember me by, in case I do not make it back for the next service. The Sentinel responded immediately. Nameplate integrated into mnemonic archive. Custodial history preserved. Marcus smiled. Thanks, big guy. He walked to the exit. The crack opened wide this time. No hesitation, no warning. The violet light followed him all the way to the threshold, like a polite goodbye. He stepped out onto the gray dust. The moon felt colder after the warm air inside. His boots crunched softly. He looked back once. The golden pulse on the tower seemed to brighten for a moment. Almost a wave. Marcus raised one hand in salute, then turned and walked to his ship. Inside the Lazy Susan, he sealed the airlock, powered up the engines, and lifted off. The small craft rose slowly, leaving the moon behind. The tower shrank in the rear view screen, but its glow remained visible long after the surface details faded. He set the autopilot for the nearest jump point. Then he opened a fresh packet of instant noodles and ate them straight from the pouch while watching the stars. His datapad chimed, A new message from the Sentinel. Short and clean. Maintenance cycle complete. Thank you. Marcus typed back. Anytime. Call if you need anything. Invoice sent. He hit send, then leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. The Lazy Susan jumped to warp, leaving the dead red giant system behind. Far behind, the Sentinel stood alone once more. But not the same. Every system hummed clean and strong. The lattice sang with fresh data. The stasis field held perfect. The golden glow moved steadily up and down the black stone, a quiet rhythm that spoke of renewed purpose. It watched the stars. It listened to the galaxy. It waited, not for the return of the precursors, not for invaders or seekers or gods. It waited for the next knock, for the next human in a patched orange suit, carrying a toolbox and a simple question, ready for the check. Because in 62,000 years of silence, one small persistent voice had answered. And in answering, had changed everything. The galaxy turned on. New ships flew, new worlds woke, new stories began. Somewhere in the rim, a tired maintenance tech filed his report. The guild clerk raised an eyebrow at the job description. Ancient Precursor Monolith Annual Service. He stamped it approved, without reading the details. Marcus Hale collected his pay, bought a hot meal, took a long shower, then sat in his small hab unit, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the tower, about the voice that had thanked him, about the nameplate stuck inside a machine older than time. He smiled. Then he fell asleep, dreaming of black stone and golden light, and the quiet promise of another visit. Years passed. The Sentinel watched. It saw wars flare and fade. It saw species rise and fall. It saw a small blue world called Earth send more ships farther than ever before. One day a larger vessel dropped out of warp near Carvel 4. It carried a team, engineers, scientists, a few maintenance techs in fresh orange jumpsuits. They hailed the tower. The crack opened wide. The voice spoke. Welcome. Access granted. Custodial team cleared. Primary custodian Hale has been notified. The team stepped inside. They stared at the glowing lattice, at the nameplate still stuck to the wall, at the systems running clean and strong. One young tech pointed. Look, someone left their tag. The team leader smiled. Yeah, that would be Marcus Hale, the guy who knocked and said maintenance check. They laughed. Then they got to work. Because some jobs never really end. They just get bigger crews and better coffee. And the ancient Sentinel, now fully awake, stood guardian over a galaxy that finally had someone to call when things broke. Because one human had shown up, knocked, and refused to leave until the job was done.